This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com and buildermasterclass.com. My name is Todd DeWald, and it's my job to help you, the construction business owner and leader, eliminate chaos, maximize profits in your business and on your projects. I've got a great interview for you today on a hot topic. Here we are in May of 2021 when this is recorded. Lumber prices are crazy, lumber availability, and frankly, material prices and availability are crazy. And that's what we're going to talk about today. My interview is with Mike Wisnefski. He is the CEO of a company that could help you solve your problems with lumber pricing and availability. He's the CEO of MaterialsXchange, the digital marketplace to buy and sell wood products, bringing e-commerce efficiency to the process. He's disrupting the supply chain. Mike knows the lumber industry better than anybody I've ever talked to, and here's what you're going to learn about. What's going on behind the scenes of skyrocketing lumber prices that most people don't know. Has anything like this ever happened before with a different commodity? Here's the big question. Where is all the money going? What does the future of lumber prices look like from Mike's perspective? We'll talk about the difference between a supply chain and a supply web. Mike also explains what he means when he said, quote, "When there's this much money laying around, someone's going to come pick it up," end quote. We talk about how John Deere was going to wreck the economy. We might even talk about the horse manure crisis of the 1890s, what democratization of the market means, and how Mike and his team are going about doing that, and then what his team at MaterialsXchange is doing to address the problem with lumber prices. Shares a couple of interesting case studies about that. Great stuff. If you want to know what the hell is going on with lumber, then this is the interview you want to listen to, and you'll also learn some strategies on what you can do about it. So great stuff. A couple of resources I want to share with you before we get into that interview. Here we go. The construction industry is facing major headwinds. More than 80% of contracting firms report that they're having trouble finding skilled labor, and greatly inflated material costs are eroding the bottom line. To be profitable, you need to be able to do more with less time, less money, and most importantly, you really need to manage your critically essential labor force with greater precision. Let's face it, the inefficiency of old school manual data entry and paper pushing is wasting thousands of dollars in valuable time every day. You need to know what's happening on your job sites in real time. The solution is Struxy labor productivity software. Built on over 50 years of construction tech innovation, Struxy replaces outdated paper timesheets and production reports with software that updates you every hour on labor performance. Struxy labor productivity software tracks your crews in the field down to each individual worker across multiple projects and allows project managers and job site supervisors to track labor production down to the cost code. Fully customizable reports allow you to establish ambitious but realistic daily production goals and estimate how many crew members and workdays are needed to complete a job on time and under budget. Struxy lives in the cloud. It can be deployed on relatively inexpensive tablets and laptops, and it is incredibly easy to use. Plus, by reducing time clock rounding errors, it will pay for itself on your first project. Visit Struxy.com to estimate your annual savings with their cost-saving calculator and to sign up for a 30-day free trial. That's Struxy.com. Struxy.com. Software built for hard work. If you're a busy construction business owner, there's a pretty good chance that you don't have good visibility into your financials. You could be getting financial reports too late, or maybe not getting financial reports at all. Or maybe you're not keeping your books up and you really don't have any idea what your numbers are. Well, if that's you, you're not alone. Scott Schweiger said this: "I highly recommend Apparatus Contractor Services. My small startup construction company was over a year behind with its bookkeeping. I was wearing way too many hats and ultimately the books suffered. They provided bookkeeping solutions that got us caught up in the systems to stay on the right track. I'm so happy I'm turning over payroll processing to them as well. Elizabeth Evans said hiring apparatus was a game changer for our business. They've allowed me to grow our construction company over 100% since we hired them about a year ago. Bill, president of Spice Industries, said hiring apparatus was one of the best business decisions I've ever made. They have almost completely freed me up from sitting at my computer reconciling budgets with my own makeshift system. So if you want to offload your bookkeeping or payroll headaches, or you just want better reporting, the Apparatus Contractor Services team may be able to help you. Visit goapparatus.com to hear from other construction business owners and see how Apparatus can help you. That's goapparatus.com. All right, now you might want to take notes for this. Enjoy my conversation with Mike Wisnefski from MaterialsXchange. Good morning, Mike. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining. How are you doing today?
Good, Todd. I'm very excited to be here and talk about things that I love to talk about.
Right on. Yeah, I guess we chatted yesterday or the day before, and I think we both got kind of jacked up about this topic, and because it's such a hot topic, and so here we are early on a Friday morning recording a podcast. So
indeed.
Yeah. So here we go. Here's the topic. What is going on behind the scenes of skyrocketing lumber prices that most people don't know about? And it's interesting, some of the theories people have about what's going on. It's Trump's fault. It's Biden's fault. It's COVID. It's pine beetles, the Canadians are holding out on us, all sorts of interesting conspiracy theories, but this is the world you live in. So what's going on behind the scenes with these crazy lumber prices?
It all actually starts back in 2008, which most people don't recognize. And actually, it goes back a lot farther than that. The reality of lumber in the lumber market is that the supply side cannot ramp up as fast as the demand side can ramp up. And this has been an age-old problem, hence the reason that lumber is considered one of the most volatile and has shown itself to be one of the most volatile commodities there is. It's a boom-bust type marketplace. If a population decides they want more houses, or they're going to buy more houses and they're going to do more housing projects, it takes a few months for those price shocks to work through the system and get to the supply side, right? So historically, there's been more latent supply or production capacity that would be accessible than there is today. So, there were more sawmills, flat out more sawmills before. And what's happened is the sawmills have learned how to optimize and really perfect the art of making lumber. And they've got it so dialed in. And this really started in the late 90s, went into 2000. And then we had the financial crisis of 2008, right? And we went down to, under 700,000 housing starts. Well, that was a massive disruption to the suppliers. And it hurt them. It knocked a few of them out. It exposed which were the high cost mills, and they got shut down. So then we actually came out of that crisis pretty smoothly, if you remember. The demand picked up nice and gradually, and then we were coasting for quite a while. Running around a million housing starts. And the industry the supply side industry could meet that without too much of a problem. At the same time, they were building new sawmills, but in different spots. So we all know this U.S. South is a hot spot. And the Canadian sawmillers started buying up sawmills and building sawmills down in the U.S. South as well. So they really shifted their focus down there. And through that whole kind of change of business process or focus, we lost production. and it just wasn't laying in the weeds. So, okay, you fast forward to today, and I personally am shocked by it. I can't believe that the supply side is so inelastic, meaning it can, grow and shrink as the market demands. COVID hits and we get that first shock, which is a downward shock, which the mills actually, downward shocks, they can respond to much quicker. It's easier to just let's slow down a little bit, take a day off here or two. If you want to add an 8th day in a week, that's a little tough. But so we have the first shock. They curtail a little bit. Everyone's worried. They maybe reduce some workforce, and it was the right move. But now we have to shift our focus to the supply chain. The one thing about our industry as well is we're kind of a bunch of lemmings. We all do the same thing at the same time. So it's known, COVID, there's no one going to build houses. Stock market's crashing. Everybody liquidates inventory. Then the reverse, like on a dime, it changes, which was fascinating. Prior to COVID, we had a move to urban environments. Everyone wanted from a housing standpoint, they wanted to be in an area with amenities. They wanted to be close by each other. They wanted to walk to the stores and stuff like that, which, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. Then you COVID, and it's an abrupt 180. Nobody wants to be by each other. I want a big yard. I want a house. If I'm going to be stuck in this prison of a house, I want it to be nice. I'm going to fix that up. We all know the story. Demand starts to, go up. And we had drained the supply chain. The producers were still skeptical of this demand increase, and they just kind of chased it. So we are actually just over 12 months away from the market low, and obviously at all-time highs. And supply is still chasing the demand. It hasn't come on in areas that you would have thought, and mostly because it's just not there. In recent weeks, we've spoken with a few different producers, and they say the same thing. Not this time. We're not going to get caught on this one. And of course, hindsight's 20/20. Anybody can look at the prices now and say, "Oh my gosh, why aren't you making more lumber? Look how much more money you would make." The industry really doesn't believe these prices are sustainable, although it's kind of coming around a little bit. So imagine this: you're running a sawmill. You've got your 2 shifts on. You are making so much money right now. What could you do? Well, I could take that money and somehow increase my production, one of the ways you do that is by adding a 3rd shift, which means adding people. Most of the time, sawmills are not in a geographic region where there's a bunch of people that are looking for jobs. Many of the jobs at sawmills are on the lower end of pay spectrum. Now you're challenging to get people who the government's paying to stay at home. So when you add all these things up, the sawmillers have to make a decision. Okay, to add that 3rd shift, I'm going to make more money, of course, but it's not as much of the return as I would have suspected, because it's going to cost me quite a bit to get that 3rd shift up and running. And they're very cognizant of what their run costs are, and they don't want to bump their run costs up because things will change. And it's the forces of them bringing supply on that will cause the market to come down. And all of a sudden, things were great running 2 shifts. We're making all this money. We had a 3rd shift. We crashed the market. Now we're losing money. So that's kind of a little bit of the mindset of the sawmillers right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And then building a sawmill takes a long time and probably tens of millions of dollars, not to mention real estate issues and just finding land, building a building, getting the financing, getting the equipment, getting people. Yeah, the whole skilled labor shortage is an issue across the board. And it seems like a bit of a perfect storm.
It is a bit of a perfect storm. Last I heard, $175 million in about 18 to 24 months gets you a sawmill. Greenfield sawmill. But you don't build a sawmill without people. Like, it takes a construction operation. And so, yeah, it was a perfect storm. So now here's what's really blown me away until a friend kind of broke it down for me. Let's shift to the demand side. Economics 101, you got your supply demand curve. As prices go up, demand should go away. Well, we've actually seen demand increase as prices have gone up. And, there's these levels that, I'll be forthright, I thought we were going to stop at, and have blown right through. And, why is that? Well, the first number was, at these prices, it's added $24,000 to the average cost of a house. It's hard to dispute that. That's about right. What does that really mean for the home buyer? What is that monthly increase in their mortgage? So you take $24,000 and you amortize it over 30 years at 3% interest. It's not very much money. And if you decide that living in a city next to all these people is going to kill you, you will move to the suburbs, right? Yeah, so at cost. So I guess the theme of what I'm saying here is the inelasticity of supply and demand has been exposed. And you add those two, you add demand not doing what its, economic theory supposed to, supply not doing what its economic theory supposed to, and you have a recipe for some extreme volatility.
Yeah, I'm looking at housing starts just for comparison. I think this is February. So in April 2020, there were 934,000 starts. July 2020, that went up to almost 1.5 million. And then it peaked in, looks like November, December, and it dropped off a little bit. So February was when, January, February, it went down to 1.5 million. Now then it jumped from 1 month to the next. It went from 1.457 up to 1.739 in a month. So the starts are double what they were a year ago.
Yep.
And so we have this perfect storm of, well, I can see it. A year ago, lumber mills said, all right, if they're looking at the stats, housing starts dropped to under 1 million. Let's shut things down. We're certainly not going to start building anything. And then it just kept going up, and everybody kept saying, this is going to peak. It's going to peak. It's going to peak. It's going to peak. And it's just not. And then when you read stories about what's happening in markets like Austin, Dallas, Florida, Salt Lake City, they're just, and maybe it comes down to that. It's not a logical decision. It's like you said, if you think living in a city is going to kill you or your family, you're going to spend, maybe if you amortize it, it's $200 a month or something like that. I don't even know what the math would be. It's not, lumber prices are not deterring people. And I've talked to some of my custom home builders who've gone back to clients and said, your price went up $120,000. And their response was, okay, let's go.
Yeah, it's not as big a deal as you would think.
It doesn't seem like it.
On the housing side.
Mm-hmm.
So, now I think we should shift to just kind of talking about some of maybe the non-residential or the non home buyer,
Okay.
residential. If you're looking to get into a house and flip it, or I shouldn't say house, like an apartment complex, and you have a budget for that, now things are starting to change for those. We had a phone call yesterday with a developer of hotels, and he's building this guy builds 10 hotels a year, like around 50,000 square feet or something. He's really taken a hard look at, wait a minute, why would I do that right now? Like, the math is hard for him to figure out because no one's staying in hotels. So he's got to make a play on the future. It's costing a whole lot. Maybe I just pause on these 5 hotels I got planned for the next 6 months. An apartment builder, maybe I just kind of push the clutch in a little bit. So I believe that's where we're at right now, is those who can wait are going, now might be the time just to ease into it.
Rents are not going up commensurately with lumber prices. Hotel rates are not going up. I can tell you, I was planning on starting a few spec homes myself this spring, but no, I'm just going to wait. I don't know where this thing's going, and home values aren't going up. Well, maybe home values are going up commensurately with lumber prices. But for folks who have a pro forma they have to hit, it's making it more attractive to wait right now. Yeah,
absolutely. It's that question is now part of the thought process. 6 months ago, absolutely not. We're going like we're now. I look at lumber futures for the immediate price changes, and since March 17th, we've gone up over 50 or over 100%. So that's in under 2 months. Prices have doubled. So I think it's rapidly brought that price, that question into the equation. Am I going to hold? Am I going to wait?
Yeah. So I want to get to, I have another question about, is there an analog to this situation? Has this happened with a commodity in the past? But before we do that, let's talk about your background and some of the work that you're doing right now. So what have you been doing for the last 15, 20 years, and what are you doing now? So
I'm a trader at heart. I look for value. I look at things, whether they're overvalued, undervalued. So for the last 15 years, I have been trading electronically. Actually, it's 20 years now. In 2000, I started trading European government bonds on the digital markets. It's so funny to say digital markets because everything in finance now is, computerized or digital. But back then, they had trading floors, and it was an extremely efficient way, peer-to-peer, everyone standing in one location, yelling and screaming, basically. And I didn't go that route. I went right to the digital markets. So I learned how to operate in that virtual environment, if you would. Now, prior to that, I was in the lumber wholesale business, which is a trading business as well. The easy way to look at it is we would bring rail cars into a distribution point and ship them out as truckloads. But we weren't beholden to maintaining an inventory all the time. So we could buy the undervalued items and hopefully they move to overvalue or gain in value so we could sell them off. So I've always had this relationship of finding value in the market, buying that, finding the higher valued items and selling those. Then around 2017, I had the experience of, back up just a little bit. In 2009, I worked an agreement out with the CME group who has the lumber futures contract. They had just listed on their Globex, their digital platform, and I became a market maker. Basically, I walked into the lumber pit with a computer, and my charge from the CME was, to try to increase trading volume on that digital market. So I would make trades in the lumber pit and then exit them on the digital market. Anyway, within 18 months of me walking into the pit, the volume in the digital market changed from zero basically to 90%, 95% of the volume. And it was kind of that eureka moment of, these digital markets are a better way to transact. Now, you overlay this with what happened in our personal lives. Amazon was just really gaining steam at that point in time. Uber and, ride sharing was going on. You could just, look in our personal lives and seeing all of these environments, which were historically peer-to-peer, human-to-human, had gone and had a digital element to them. So I said, how can I take what I've learned here and apply it to the actual lumber market, which, as we know, it's very challenging to get pricing in lumber and to know where things are at. 2 months down the road, you can look back and go, wow, yeah, I saw that coming, or, we really felt that. But in real time, just knowing what's the price right now, unless you're actively shopping, is a difficult thing. And, consider how many people or entities in this industry are directly affected by the price of lumber and panels today, yet they don't know it. So I experienced digital markets as a better way to do it. I knew it was going to be good for the industry. We launched MaterialsXchange in, let me think about this. Well, we started programming in July of 2019. We had our first transaction in February of 2020. Then the world changed a little bit. But since August of 2020, things have really been ramping up here. And we've made a little bit of a dent in the universe of lumber. People are able to transact on a digital platform now. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So how were you feeling in early 2020? Well, a year ago when COVID hit, did you see this as an opportunity, or was it more of an, oh shit, what have I gotten myself into kind of a moment?
I really didn't think it was going to be a long-lasting thing. I was kind of, this is going to be great because it's going to, our system's obviously easier to use remotely. So I was like, all right, this is going to be cool. And what I didn't anticipate was in times of crisis, people revert back to their little safety net. Mm. And everybody went back to what they're comfortable with and their good suppliers. And he always takes care of me. And okay, great. I get it. And that worked for most people for probably about 6 months. And all of a sudden we got to August and your good supplier just kind of screwed you over or doesn't have your product or you can't find anything, don't know where the market is, your business has all been disrupted. People started looking for an alternative. They're like, look, we got to do something different. Mm-hmm. And since August 2020, our phone is ringing off the hook. I should say our email boxes, our inboxes is extremely full.
And we'll get to you. I want to talk about what you guys are up to at MaterialsXchange here before we're done. But I'm curious, you're a trader, you've studied economics. Has anything like this happened in the past where a commodity has doubled in price in a few months? And is this just unprecedented ground?
Nothing's unprecedented. You take a look at some of the oil market, for instance, which is a fascinating market to look at. It's, doubled and tripled in a few months when there's some sort of economic crisis. I like to look at oil. What was it? A year and a half ago, it went negative. just over a year ago. It went absolutely negative, meaning like the average Joe doesn't understand when I say negative. If you wanted to sell your oil, you had to give somebody money to take your oil away. Mm-hmm. That's what it meant selling. It was a brief 1-day period, but markets do strange things when they start to get to extremes. And in that case, it was a supply. There was nowhere to put the oil, nowhere to store it. And it was in the wrong people's hands. So yes, markets act crazy at extremes. And I do believe we're at an extreme right now in lumber. There's no one willing to sell it. Like we really need to get to a point where buyers stop buying. But no, so you can take oil market. I know the tulip market way back. There's a story about that. I don't know it exactly. But this will happen. You can find 100-year flood every 10 years if you really want to look for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's a question that I've seen a lot of people ask: where is all the money going? It's clearly not the builders. Doesn't seem to be the lumber yards. The money's going somewhere. It's not the cost of timber hasn't gone up. The cost to grow a tree hasn't gone up. It doesn't seem like. But where's all the money going?
There's two places. The first, which is the easy to see, the producers, these sawmillers, record earnings. They are making so much money, and I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with it. Do they, put it out as a dividend? Are they going to do CapEx projects? I don't know, but the reality of it is they are flush with cash, and it's not going to the timber producers. Normally, you would see, a demand spike like this would increase production, which would increase log costs, and we're just not seeing it. In fact, log costs are at pretty historic lows or near historic lows. Now, the spot that people don't see where it's going is in the distributors who have contracts or access to this product. They're killing it. I mean, the prices are moving so fast, and their margins are so high. So your good suppliers are doing just fine. So yeah, it's inside of that distribution network, there is a ton of money being made.
Yeah. Can you walk through what the typical supply chain looks like and how many people are dipping their finger in that pie?
Sure. Yeah, let's look at the traditional supply chain. Sawmill sells to stocking distributor. Stocking distributor sells to a retail lumber dealer. Retail lumber dealer sells to a home builder, like a home pack, who eventually sells that house to a home buyer. So there's about 5 steps in that. That's the traditional. Now, in today's world, we've added a few, I think, fantastic segments in there, which is the offsite construction, where we're building homes in factories and delivering them to job sites. So there you're going generally producer to the offsite facility, to the builder or developer, and then to the homeowner. And in fact, even some of the largest framers now and some of these large builders are buying direct, and in many cases can get truckloads directly from a sawmill site to a job site. So there's a lot of different channels going on. Here's an interesting thing, though, that's happened inside of our digital network. And we've coined a new phrase. Instead of saying supply chain, we call it the supply web. The supply chain, as we know it in lumber, works on relationship. I can't buy from you unless I know you. I can't sell to you unless we have an established relationship. With Materials Exchange or a digital market, you connect parties to each other that don't know each other. And the network or the digital market takes care of the relationship side, the matching up of buyer and seller, and the moving of money, moving of goods. And what we've essentially done, and this is so cool, is anyone who stocks lumber, who keeps an inventory of lumber, can now be a distribution point. And we've actually seen supply, because the market moves have been so extreme, move down the traditional chain in from supply or the producing mill, distribution, retail yard, back to distribution, back to a retail yard. We've seen retail yard to retail yard. We recently had a transaction of offsite construction. It was a truss builder who had bought material. Prices moved up. He's moving that material off. I think that's really amazing. And now the true supply or the true forces of supply demand are coming into play. If you have demand that can't reach, or supply that can't reach demand, or demand that's invisible to supply, you're not going to have an efficient market. And that's what we've been able to do. So the new phrase, you heard it here first, supply web.
Supply web makes a lot of sense. It's resource leveling. So it's sort of like a couple of analogies I would see. When COVID hit, there were parts of the country where people were shut down. They couldn't work. They couldn't get on job sites. And other parts of the country were still booming. So there were people who were outsourcing their employees, their shut down employees, outsourcing their employees to other companies and saying, hey, you pay me by the hour and you can use my employee short term to help you with your spike. And it just makes a lot of sense, as opposed to somebody in San Francisco laying their employee off. Meanwhile, somebody in Dallas is scrambling to find employees to do information work. Let's do some resource leveling. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
I think the best example is ride sharing,
Mm-hmm.
The Uber and Lyft. Those networks unlocked this massive supply of automobiles and of labor that is willing to give rides to people. Prior to that, what were your choices? Limo and a taxi, maybe a bus, maybe a train. But, what they've done is just unlocked this latent supply that we didn't even know existed. And what I find fascinating about that is that supply has brought on demand. Meaning, previously you would drive somewhere. Now you're like, well, I'm just going to take an Uber. It's just easier. Now, no, not everybody's helped by that. So who would be hurt by what's happened in the Uber phenomena? It's parking. Like I live in downtown Chicago. The valets are struggling. Why? Because everyone takes Ubers to restaurants now. For me, I can take an Uber and it is, less than the cost of the valet. And it's just, it's more relaxing experience generally.
Yeah. Better experience, less cost, less risk.
Yeah, it's fine. I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting how bringing on supply created demand. Some people think it's like, well, this is a zero-sum game. And when we bring on supply, then it's going to hurt. But it actually generated demand. It created awareness of an opportunity that people didn't know was there. Oh, I thought it was either or, I drive or taxi, but now I do the same thing when I travel. I don't want to mess around with navigating, parking, rental car, all these other host of issues that Uber takes care of. And you're right. It unlocked all of this latent demand that we didn't even know was there and created a whole other economy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. So I'm a systems guy. I so believe in systems. And sometimes I get frustrated because humans get involved in systems and do irrational things. And they generally make decisions based off of what their personal need is at that time or their personal fear. And, if you just take a look at a system, any system, it will level itself out. And, the ride sharing one is perfect. I think the lumber supply chain is, a big system that is going to level itself out, and we will weed out the people who are not adding value and just adding cost. And there's two sides to every coin. As we started this business, we're a startup. Who are you disrupting? And while there's no doubt we're disrupting, I like to look at who are we enabling? Like, who can have a new business or expand their business because of something we're doing? Like that, it's not as dramatic, it's not as fun to talk about, but it's really cool when you see someone taking, I don't want to say take advantage, but of utilizing something new that makes the system better.
Yeah. I'm a big systems guy myself. And I spoke with somebody, a home builder yesterday, who said something to the effect of, my people are making decisions based on what's convenient that day, what's going on that day. And businesses should be run on systems by people, businesses should not consist of decisions made by people, which can vary. You want to run your business on systems and have good people to run those systems if you want consistency. Now, if you like volatility and variability and inconsistency, then I'd say, just forget the systems. Just hire a bunch of people and see how it goes. But systems are definitely the way to go. So let's talk about the future. If you look in your crystal ball, what does the future of lumber prices and availability look like from where you sit?
So, the first thing you can look at, which is real easy to look at, is lumber futures, right? And while there is backwardation, which means the longer you look out in time, the lower the price is, it's still at an extremely elevated level. Prices all the way out to November. In future speak, it's at $1,100, actually a little over $1,100. Which, if you took away all the front month stuff or the early stuff, that would still be a record high, right? I don't know that we're at a sustainable level, because given enough time, people will figure out a way. There's this much money laying around. Someone's going to figure out a way to come pick it up. So I also think this is a demand spike, like we talked about before. If you're pushing off 2 houses or 3 houses, whatever you're going to build, all of a sudden people start pushing that off. I don't think we are going to crash. I think this is going to be a somewhat orderly pullback. There's a couple wild cards in there, though. Now, I also think that it's going to take a long time, several years, for us to get back to anywhere close to mill shutdown points, which that's where supply would come off the market. No one is going to reduce their production levels because we dropped to $800 per 1,000 board feet. So it's going to take a while for us to get there. The wild card is, we Americans think that we're the center of the earth and everything revolves around us. Currently, that is the case because we're the shiniest penny out there. But if other sections of the world turn on the building boom, basically China, if their demand spikes, I could build a case for us to make another leg up. Why couldn't we go to $2,500 per 1,000? Like, literally, China can consume so much more wood than we can here in North America. So like that's a wild card. We could see this fall, who know, natural events, forest fires or something. We're definitely at a point that we're susceptible to shocks. So my crystal ball basically says we'll see a big pullback. We'll probably suck out 25% of the value or price in a heartbeat, and then an orderly decline for, maybe into the end of the year. But there'll be some price spikes in there for sure.
Yeah, it seems like some of those pro forma based buyers they'll pull back because the economics just don't work. If you're building something and you have to make money, then at some point it makes sense just to wait.
Yep.
Single family housing is less pro forma driven. So that's more demand based. People want to get out. There's this mass exodus from urban areas. So it feels like that's something that's a little less price sensitive. People are looking at it long term. Hey, it's 30-year mortgage. It's either spend an additional $100 to $200 a month, let's say, or think my family's going to die. Those are the decisions people are making.
Here's something I see that probably most people don't currently. Urban flight is going to turn on a heartbeat.
Really?
And when 9/11 happened, that you could have bought an apartment in a high-rise downtown Chicago for pennies on the dollar. Like no one was going to live in a high-rise. A year later, everything's back to normal. So when you consider the cost of that house in the suburbs now has just increased by 20%, the cost of that 2-bedroom condo in the city just dropped by 20%. I'm 32 years old. I'm not going to die from COVID. Where do I want to live? Do I want to live in the suburbs? Boring yawn town? No, I want to live back in the city. Like it's going to flip like that. And I think the people that are going to get stung are these, I'm going to build a bunch of entry-level homes in the suburbs. I mean, that's probably not going to do so well.
Yeah. I spoke with someone recently who said, this is not a good time to go try to grab more market share. No, this is not a good time to go try to do that. It's a time to optimize and kind of ride it out. Yeah, that's good advice. That's interesting. So the other one I think is a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Work from home. And here's why.
We've basically been in our office the whole time, and we have a few people working remote. The productivity as a team, integrating with the remote people, is absolutely 60% at best. So you're going to be like, well, I want to work from home. Okay, work from home, but accept the fact that you're probably not going to get promoted. Accept the fact that you're not going to get a raise or you're not going to do as well. And if you're okay with that, then stay at home. But in the meantime, the people that come back in the office, engage with the teams, work together, and the companies that require that or reward that are going to be the companies that do well. So, yeah, everybody likes to walk. They move forward by walking backwards, and they want to look at the past and not look at what the reality of what the future holds. And if you want to succeed and move up the chain, you have to be around other people. You have to be part of the team.
Yeah. So we talked about I'm always looking for seeds of opportunity in the middle of a crisis. What I'm hearing you say is one opportunity could be snatching up some urban housing. Maybe it's some of the properties that people have fled from that they'll come back to at some point because of economics. What are some of the other opportunities that you see in this crisis? You're always looking to move something from a position of low value to high value. What are some of those opportunities?
New building methods. Straight up. Look, ordering a bunch of material, dropping it on a muddy job site, and building the way we've built for the last 100 years, that if you think that's the way to succeed, then by all means continue on. But if you look at different ways to construct, different processes, different materials, just the amount of technology that's going into construction and the like BIM, the building information modeling, it's nothing short of remarkable. So the real opportunity, I think, is open-minded, flexibility, positioning yourself to change at a moment's notice, change material, change design, change, just having flexibility. That's the opportunity.
Yeah, I think one of the analogies I think of is Blockbuster, right? 25 years ago, there were thousands of Blockbusters. And if you wanted to watch a movie, that was the place to go. And then now I think there's one. There's one Blockbuster, which is in Bend, Oregon. And they have a hilarious Twitter account, by the way. I don't even know if if they actually rent movies, but the entertainment value alone is good. And they got disrupted because they were, I don't know, maybe they had more candy and popcorn, and they were incrementally changing or incrementally improving the movie rental or movie watching business. And then along came Netflix and Amazon, and now all that's left is one good Twitter feed. And I think it's the same way with housing, with construction. It's a process issue. We don't, when it comes to skilled labor, for example, everybody talks about, not everybody, a lot of people talk about, we can't find good people. We don't just have a skilled labor shortage. We have a process problem. Look at the productivity. And the productivity problems are not rooted in the people climbing ladders and swinging hammers. It's all the process leading up to it. It's everything that leads up to the point where you have people on the job site. And that's, I think the housing industry and the construction in general is being disrupted right now. And
for sure.
There are going to be a lot of people who are like Blockbuster store managers, and they're going to be closing their doors for the last time, wondering what happened. Where did I go wrong?
So here's the thing I'm really keeping a close eye on is CLT, cross-laminated timber. You familiar with that?
Yeah, a little bit.
That is a direct substitute for concrete in mid-rise applications. It uses a ton of fiber, a lot of wood. So I see where that could really disrupt regular home building. And we could see lumber prices skyrocket from here. Because when you factor in just the fiber cost plus the ease of use in a commercial application, the speed with which you can build a building, like all these different reasons why it's more advantageous to use that than concrete. That could be that thing no one sees coming is, well, what about all the wood for houses? It's going over there for that apartment building or that office building.
Yeah, I've seen some mass timber. Mass timber is growing. It seems like in the commercial environment. I've seen some mass timber and cross-laminated timber high rises. So conventionally, wood frame construction tops out at 4 stories, or at least stick frame construction tops out at 4 stories in most parts of the country. But now they're building high rises out of wood, mass timber, cross-laminated timbers. So yeah, that could be a wild card. So if the mass timber folks are successful, then that you get mass timber, China. Seems like we're pretty susceptible to a big shift here. Yeah.
Yeah. These are just, look, I'm not saying they're for sure, but these are what are on my radar of things to watch, for sure. So, keeping an open mind and an open eye and, being flexible. I think robotics are going to make a huge difference. You're talking about people involved in the process and how, there's a labor shortage. Well, John Deere, by the way, was going to wreck the U.S. economy way back when he built or designed the new plow, because everyone was working in construction, and this new plow was going to be so much more efficient. And you look today, at that time, I think 70% of the population of the United States was working in farming, and we're probably down around 1 or 2% now today. So there are innovative people out there that will figure out how to solve the problem of not enough people to do a job. Transportation, like without a doubt, we're going to have driverless trucks. That's just reality. Mm-hmm. So there's cool stuff going on with robotics and offsite construction. Those are a couple of the things that I'm watching.
Yeah, you mentioned there's so much money laying around. Somebody's going to come pick it up. There's so much equity sitting on the sidelines. And when people see big opportunities, they see big problems, that's where the money flows. And somebody's going to come in and solve this. And all the prognosticators of doom are projecting just straight line extrapolation. And they're not thinking about innovation or disruption. Right. And we as a society I'm pretty sure we've survived 100% of the crises that we've hit. Every economic crisis has passed.
Last time I checked, yeah.
I think we're good. I think we made it. We've survived 100% of those crises, and it's because of disruption. So speaking of disruption, let's talk about what you guys are doing at MaterialsXchange to help address the problem with lumber prices and availability and some of the other problems with the traditional supply chain.
It comes down to democratization of the marketplace, giving everybody a fair shot at being able to access material, and most importantly is you access information, access price information. It's when you consider what the financial markets were like 25 years ago. If you wanted to buy 1,000 shares of Ford, you called up your broker and he's like, yeah, okay, let me call my guy. And he calls this guy who's standing down on the floor. And that guy's like, let me call over to that guy. And all of a sudden you recognize how many guys there are in that process. If you want to buy 1,000 shares of Ford right now, you could probably get it done in about 30 seconds. Log into your account, bada bing, bada boom. You just bought it. That's the impetus for what we're shooting for. We want to unlock the ability, or we want to remove the barriers for anyone to buy lumber who has the capacity to buy at the scale that is required on our platform, which is full truckload quantities, and can pay for it right away. So it's really taking a system, finding the inefficiencies, creating systems to mitigate those inefficiencies, and unlock value. So that's a fancy way of saying we're an e-commerce platform that has a user interface that looks like a financial market. If you want to buy a truck of 7/16 OSB, you sign up for our platform, we get you onboarded, you have a place that you can unload that with a forklift, and you're going to buy on a fairly consistent basis. We'd be more than happy to have you on board.
So if I signed up, I could get on there and I could see materials that are available all over the country and as part of the supply web. Is that right?
Correct. Well, you actually wouldn't see it all over the country, because the great part about what we do is every user sees the price delivered to their location if they're a buyer, or picked up from their location if they're a seller. And we incorporate the freight costs into there.
Gotcha.
So, it would take a lot of work for you to you log on. If this was the case that you said, oh, okay, I'm sitting here in Cincinnati. Well, there's some wood in New Jersey, in Denver, in Milwaukee, down in Austin. Oh, I got to calculate the freight. No, when you log on in Cincinnati, all those locations may have product, but the system prices them delivered to you.
Got it. Makes sense. You mentioned one case study of a framer who is buying material directly, but any other case studies or examples of how people are using your platform differently, or maybe different types of businesses that are using your platform?
Well, here's a really cool one. And when the traditional model, you have a business and you have a customer base. We had an industrial distributor out of the upper Midwest. So he's selling to pallet builders and industrial applications, not home building, right? One of the products he inventoried was 2x4 number 3 SPF. It's not used for residential construction in his area, but it is used in Texas. Now, those two companies have no relationship, would never have a relationship because they fall outside of the scope of how they do business. But we recently had a transaction between the two. This is when the housing, lumber prices for housing are escalating in Texas, and things were kind of slow in Minneapolis. It was the middle of winter. So yeah, it made sense. We trucked wood all the way from Minneapolis down to Texas. So that's a perfect example, a case study of when everybody gets involved into the digital market. All the nodes aren't discriminatory. I don't care that you're industrial products. I don't care that you're residential. I don't care you're a truss builder. It's like, what's your price? Like we break it down to the lowest common barrier. This is the product. This is the price. Are you interested? So it simplifies. I do have this. I got a text on Tuesday from a user, and it says, not to be too dramatic, but 6 years of me purchasing for a 70-year-old company with plenty of steady relationships. 3 full days of calling every contact I would usually call when I need product and can sell it for a decent price, and I totally strike out. I put a bid on MaterialsXchange for lumber I already have sold and have the product the next day. Can't beat a larger network. Good time for your company to be making markets more efficient. And yeah, like this guy's busy. He's running a lumber dealer and buying. He makes his calls, strikes out. Now he throws the bid up on MaterialsXchange. Let us do the work. Well, we don't really do the work. Let the system do the work. And yeah, he hooked up, literally had the product the next day.
Yeah. That just makes so much sense. Everything else we do, we don't call a guy to call a guy to call a guy to call a guy to buy stocks. We use Amazon. We use Uber. I love the idea of democratization of information. Let's make it available to everybody. Yeah. Very cool. So where should people go to learn more and or just sign up on the platform?
So it's a good question. I mean, obviously it's a simple question. I laugh because I get asked this all the time, and I give a bit of a flippant answer in that, look, if you're going to be successful on our platform, you probably already know how to get in touch with me. You Google MaterialsXchange, look up digital marketplace for lumber. We're going to pop up. Mm-hmm. So that's the flippant answer. The reality is, go to materialsexchange.com. You can register through the website. We'll reach back out to you. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me without a doubt. They could email you and you could send it to them. So that question, I love to answer that question because it absolutely highlights. If you would have a hard time getting in touch with me, MaterialsXchange isn't for you.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I'll have those links in the show notes. I'll have your LinkedIn link in there as well. And MaterialsXchange, Materials Exchange, materials without the E.
I think it's kind of, there's a story behind the name. We put the X in the middle, and we separated materials and change because we are about change. It's a little bit different, but they're, how logos and names sometimes have hidden things in them. We do have a hidden emblem in our name. At the bottom side of the X is a delta. And anyone who has had science, chemistry or whatever, delta is the symbol for change.
I like it.
So now you know.
MaterialsXchange.com. Yeah,
correct.
Great stuff. Well, Mike, this has been fascinating. I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing. You guys are doing some great work. I look forward to watching what happens and partnering with you guys to help get the word out there. So thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate the opportunity, and we've got blue skies in front of us as a country, or as a population and society. I'm very positive on just about everything right now.
Yeah, I think we're going to be okay.
I agree.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
If you're a busy construction business owner, there's a chance that you don't have good visibility into your financials. You could be getting reports too late, or not getting reports at all. Or maybe you're not even keeping your books at all, and you really don't have any idea what your numbers are. Think about these questions. Are your jobs really profitable? Do you even know? What's your real overhead, and what does it mean to your earning potential? If a bank asks for a balance sheet, do you even know where to start? Look, if you want to offload your bookkeeping or payroll headaches, or you just want better financial reporting, the Apparatus Contractor Services team can help you. Visit goapparatus.com to hear from other construction business owners they work with and see how they can help you. That's goapparatus.com. There you go. Be sure to check the show notes for all the links. Connect with Mike and his team. Be sure to go to MaterialsXchange.com, and that's MaterialsXchange.com. There's no E between materials and change, if that makes sense. So MaterialsXchange.com. Connect with Mike on LinkedIn. And as always, thank you so much for ratings and the reviews. If you could take a moment, leave a rating or a review that helps get the word out there to the rest of the world. And if there's somebody that needs to hear this, then share it with them. Send them a text, share it from your podcast player of choice. And as always, if there's anything I could do to help you, if you're a business owner and you want to identify some of the roadblocks in your business, put together a strategy to get where you want to be, if you want to do some strategic planning, if your business is growing and you're scaling and you need to figure out what your team needs to look like, and you want to have a proactive plan, then let's get on the phone. Go to buildermasterclass.com/apply, fill out a form there. That'll tell me what's going on. And then I'll get back to you and we'll schedule a time to jump on a Zoom call to talk through all of that stuff. That's buildermasterclass.com/apply. As always, thank you so much for listening. My name is Todd DeWalt. Be sure to check out buildermasterclass.com for lots of free resources, and I will see you next time. More than 80% of contracting firms report they're having trouble finding skilled labor, and greatly inflated material costs are eroding the bottom line. Look, to be profitable, you need to manage your critically essential labor force with greater precision. The solution is Struxy Labor Productivity Software. Fully customizable reports allow you to establish ambitious yet realistic daily production goals, or as I like to say, what winning looks like, and estimate how many crew members and workdays are needed to complete a job on time and under budget. Struxy lives in the cloud, and by reducing time clock rounding errors, this is a big deal, it will pay for itself on your very first project. Visit Struxy.com to estimate your annual savings with their cost-saving calculator and to sign up for a 30-day free trial. That's Struxy.com, Struxi.com. Software built for hard work.